So I'm really happy to have you here. Miranda, I think we met how many years back? 3?
Yes, I think it's about 3 years back.
Yes, and so we've come a long way, I think. And I remember the first time I met you. It will always stand out for me because that was mid-COVID, and we were asking people to share experiences with how COVID had impacted them and things like that. And I remember in particular, you got very emotional, and I walked out with you and I sat with you after you shared and spoke to your own experience. And I guess that was the beginning of my journey with you. And I'm like, wow, it's not every time that you meet someone and they are willing to be open like that. Growing up for myself, and even up until today, in my family I'm known as the crier, like Carol cries. So seeing you shed tears in a room full of people without shame, for me as a woman of color was big. And I guess this is why you are our color me vulnerable for this series. You really, really, really embody it, because really when you look at the definition of vulnerability, it's the ability to show emotion without feeling any shame, and actually the risk of sometimes being called she's too emotional or she overshares or whatever the case may be. But I really admired that, even though you were sharing something really painful, something really deep, but I would have sucked it up, and I'm gonna hold it in. But you went into your feelings, you went right there. Afterwards we came in and you joined the room, and I'm like, wow.
I can remember that. I think it was just after my dad had passed away, and you were coming in to get us together.
Yes.
And now that I remember, you came out with me actually, and your colleague continued the facilitation.
And that was my beginning.
Wow, eh?
Yes, with you.
It's very interesting that you could connect it back then.
When I was thinking of the women that I've worked with, really for me vulnerability was you, and I'm like, but what makes it so strong? So when I looked at our story that I've been working on without you, by the way, I'm like, right there is the minute I felt this is someone who can speak authentically to what it means to be vulnerable and still show up powerfully. And in the same way, you come back into the room, you talk about what needs to be talked about, you share, and I'm like, this is like, I just saw something really soft and beautiful here. I'm seeing this really powerful woman on the other side, and you held and you've been holding those things together. So tell us about you.
For me, when I think or when I look at vulnerability, for me it's always presented somebody that's real and human, with no boundaries. And I also think the individual that I shed a tear for on that particular day, my dad. So my dad is was a very learned man, but from very humble beginnings. But his ability to connect with people from all walks of life always used to amaze me. So what he would do as well, he would visit the men that live in the single quarters, and then would send somebody to our house for my mom to prepare the pap, because they were going to cook meat there, and he would only eat pap from his wife. So I think a lot of that comes from the foundation of how I was brought up, because my dad showed up everywhere in many ways. And I'm just going to use a simple example. I come from a good foundation. I'm not going to say I come from privilege, but I had the honor of being sent to a very good school. And with that being said, he always encouraged me. So I went to this very good school. I couldn't even speak a word of English. I was the only black child in the whole primary school.
Wow.
And he always encouraged me that I must show up. But my showing up was around the fact that I want to make him proud, because he's investing in my education. And none of these Abelungu must think I'm getting a discount for being here. Because my dad stops university, and when the university is closed, he goes and works at a filling station to kind of make up. And I think the foundation of being real and authentic and showing up was instilled from him as well. We worry about the shame, what people are going to say, how they're going to label us. But that for me, it has never stopped me, because I always say with vulnerability, it also talks about being open, sharing, showing people who you really are and what you stand for. And I've always said to myself, if I share and the other people make fun of my sharing, there is a God that's going to punish them 7 times fold. Because my sharing and my putting myself out there is actually about wanting people to learn from my experiences, be they hard or painful, but take something out of it that will probably help them through a journey that they might be going through. And with also that, me allowing myself to be vulnerable, I believe it has shaped the person the fabulous Riri that I have become.
Oh, fantastic. I love that. Tell us more about this fabulous Riri. How are you bringing your vulnerability into your workplace, Riri?
I do believe it's been a journey. So I do think sometimes people thought I'm loud. She's actually too much. And they would label me of being loud and not take out some of the elements of, some of the finer details in me being loud. But for me, I believe my confidence and the fact that I'm very comfortable owning my space. And how I have managed to bring this for me into the workplace, it's actually enabled me to build meaningful, stronger relationships. And it has by no way made me feel I'm weak. It has not allowed me to feel intimidated. And in fact, it's just made me a lot more confident, because there's only one Miranda. And she doesn't have to be anyone else but who she is. And that was what has driven me. And I do know sometimes I step on toes and I irritate people, but you know what? My intentions when I show myself up, I'm just being me and nothing else. And my intentions is not to intimidate, it's not to irritate, but it's just me owning myself and feeling comfortable about who I am. And I think it's underplayed in the corporate world. We could be showing up a lot more in terms of vulnerability, because for me, if we do a lot more of that at senior level, we're actually showing the people that we lead we are human. We're actually showing them that we can be engaged, which kind of like links to the purpose that we are driving. And we're actually showing them as well, as strong as I am with the title that I hold and with what I stand and the role that I fulfill, I also have crosses that I bear. Because behind that whole facade of titles and roles, there's actually a human being. There's a human being, there's a father, there's a wife, there's a mother, there's a sister, there's a grandfather. And, you know, we all go through the same things, but it obviously varies. But I think more so at senior level, just for people to know that we're actually human and it's okay to show up.
What do you think would be the impact of more vulnerability in the workplace from your perspective? If more women, you know, could embody that, and men as well. And I know the focus of this conversation is really to empower women during the month of August. What would it really bring in the workplace if we didn't make people feel like they're being too much or they're oversharing? What would it do if we unleashed vulnerability in the workplace?
You know, I honestly believe if we unleashed it a lot more, first of all, it would work around building more relationships. It would also encourage the people being connected to each other at a different level. And I don't think we should underestimate the empowerment it will bring to each other as women or as colleagues. Because even more so now, people are going through so much. And we all need coping mechanisms, and we all have to balance and juggle so many balls. But there's nothing stopping us from reaching out. And I think in the corporate world, that reaching out and asking for help is also kind of sometimes interpreted as a sign of weakness. And I've learned, for my journey, I've actually achieved a lot more than I would have achieved if I operated on my own. I've achieved a lot more from people that I work with, colleagues, store managers, who actually support me in delivering what I need to deliver. And I've only done that through the process of showing myself up and putting myself out there and asking for help and saying, guys, I need help here, or I'm being stretched. And luckily, because of the relationships I've built, through being vulnerable, through exposing myself, it has only aided in me being the person that I am and probably being an effective HR business partner.
What you reflected back to me about the relationships, it's allowed you to build relationships, authentic relationships, and long-lasting relationships. What is the value of long-lasting relationships in the workplace, especially if they are led by vulnerability?
For me, the benefit of long-lasting relationships, you know what, we spend 80% of our time at work, 80 to 90%. And a lot of the engagement that you do, you probably do with your people, with your colleagues that you work with. And I've learned now some of those long-lasting relationships that I've built with my colleagues, I've kind of like outgrown people that I've worked with. And I'm finding more meaning in these relationships. And I'm going to use a very recent example. I worked for Foschini in 2000. I left Foschini in 2000. One of the area managers that I worked with at Foschini, Loretta, was at my mother's funeral.
Wow. How did that make you feel?
I stood, when I saw her coming, because she's retired and she was my mentor, At the time when I didn't have a car, Utani would drop me at home on Fridays because she didn't want me to be on the train. I saw her coming and I thought, no man, am I seeing stuff? She sat through my mom's service, right through. She couldn't understand, how the thing, most of the proceedings. And that, it sat so close to me because I thought this is the value of long-lasting relationships. And people become family when you work with them.
True.
And I'll be very honest with you, with the long-lasting relationships I've built at Woolworths with the colleagues, they've been nothing but meaningful. And that's probably what has kept me going. I mean, even I did my daughter's 21st after my mom passed away. And my daughter wanted little gifts for her, for the 15 people that visited. Now there was another manager that I worked with at Foschini, but her daughter worked at Woolies. She sorted out all my daughter's gifts.
Yeah.
And this is the value of and this is a value of relationships with people that I've really gone deep with in terms of conversations. I don't know how it got there, but some of the conversations were so deep, and I would say, did I just share that? But it's led to me sharing something that was deep, and it was, returned in a different manner, because I know that manager walked away feeling she had benefited from me. And it makes life easy, guys. Honestly.
Vulnerability makes life easy. Vulnerability has given you long-lasting relationships. It's given you joy. And are there any personal beliefs that you have or values that really underpin you showing up vulnerably?
Integrity is a big thing for me. Integrity and loyalty is massive in my life. To a point, I do not have a problem leaving people away. Putting people in a box, because you've compromised one of my strongest values around integrity, loyalty. With integrity, it's around being authentic, do what you say you will do, and it's around being honest. And for me, it links very well with vulnerability, because vulnerability zones in around being you, being authentic, being honest in all your dealings. So integrity is what drives me. And with that being said, around the element of honesty, I've taken major risks that have compromised me because of these strong values that I've hold. But I've also been able to stand back and say, I wouldn't have done it any different.
If you had an opportunity to address a whole room of women that want to really take up space and positions in the world, what would you say to them about vulnerability and the power thereof?
It's going to sound very cliche, but what I would probably say around vulnerability, it would probably be, you know what? Own your space and do you. Because if you don't do you, nobody's going to do you. So take up your space, own it, and show up for who you really are. Because I also think it comes with maturity and age. But it also doesn't mean we can't stop or we don't have to share it with people. Because I have a 22-year-old daughter. She owns her space so much that I sometimes think, you're actually too much. But when I step back, I often say, she needs to own her space. She needs to say what she wants, how she wants it. She needs to be honest and clear in her communication and her needs and desires, because those are the things that I never did. So that is what I would probably tell them. Own your space, be you, because there's only one you. And if you fall, rise again, because at some point with owning your space, there are risks associated with that. People, can make you fall and you will come over stumbling blocks, but there's nothing that stops you from standing. And I can comfortably say that because my home bringing has taught me that. I've got a very personal story that I don't mind sharing. So I was brought up by both hardworking parents, a father that was a lecturer at the University of Stellenbosch and a mother that was a nursing sister. And within that journey, my mother became an alcoholic. And I did feel it brought shame to the family, especially for my dad, because obviously the community saw him in good standing, whatever. But what I learned out of that, I did not allow my mother's circumstances to put shame to me. I continued to own my space. I continued to show up despite the challenges, because I learned that that was what my mom was going through. It's not me that was going through it. I still had to live my legacy. And that situation always told me, you know what, things will happen and things will come and go around you, but you still have to stand still. And I did. But obviously, she recovered, and that's why she was married. When my dad passed away, they were married for 57 years. Wow. And she nursed her husband up until the end. But I also believe there within, she was a strong praying woman. So whatever that journey when she went through at that time when she stumbled, she recovered, and a very strong, power praying woman. And God, I think it was God's doing that allowed her to recover and kind of like say to us, continue to show up. Your mother at some point will also show up. And she showed up in how she nurtured my dad up to his death, and he was 91 when he passed away.
Miranda, you've shared very powerful, touching stories around what influenced the ability to show up vulnerably, and your ability to continually show up vulnerable. I think there's a Carol somewhere or a little Riri upcoming somewhere who says, but I've got imposter syndrome. How can I show up vulnerably? At the same time, I'm afraid there's no space for me. Things could go wrong. What would you say to that Carol who's really trying, but feels that maybe if I take too much space, or maybe if I share, maybe if I reach out for help, then I won't look as collected, or my degree will be irrelevant at this point? What advice would you give Carol?
First of all, I need to start on the degree part. Being degreed or whatever sometimes does not always talk to the fact that people will shine. You could have a degree and it could go pear-shaped. But to that, Carol, I would probably have those conversations wanting to understand what are the actual fears, because I never had that. Nobody asked me what your fears. I just did things, and thought, oops, burnt a bridge there. Let's see if we can go rebuild it. So to avoid people burning bridges, I think it's around also, I don't think as Black women we do a lot of coaching. We don't coach, we don't share. When we get somewhere there, we forget about the others. And sometimes it's not necessarily that I want to get up there, but I just want to climb a few of the little steps. So those little Carols that don't have a voice, I think the Riris of this world, we actually have a responsibility to get them to unpack. So what are your fears? Let's unpack your fears and see if we can't find a solution or something that will help you deal with those fears. But it's also around being honest to those little voices. You have to take that step, and you're going to make unpopular decisions, but you also need to do a deep dive and kind of reflect and understand what could I have done differently. There's so much room for us to create the space where people are allowed to show being vulnerable, but we don't do it often enough. I know within my own, I show up all the time, and I'm very comfortable with it, but I think it's a journey. And people must we must help each other along. We must hold each other's hands. We must support each other. We must be real to each other. We must be there for each other, so that little Carol that feels uncomfortable, she knows she can reach out to Miranda, and Miranda will help her along. And just walk the journey with her.
In closing, what's the one question you wish I'd asked you about vulnerability?
I would just love to know maybe what is available out there to coach those little voices,
Well, I think when you ask that question, what comes up for me is there's an opportunity that you've identified to create spaces for women to be coached around vulnerability or anything else that you really feel is important. I'm sure there are women like yourselves, the ladies of this world, but who've never really come together and said, this is our sole mandate to make sure that the Carols of this world, especially of color, have an opportunity to get the coaching that they need, the support that they need, so that they can really sit and unpack, so that they show up fully in the boardroom, they show up fully on the shop floor as they build their dreams. So here's a gap for you, Miranda.
Okay, now before you finish, because there was one question that I was thinking in mind. So I remember when you started doing some work for Woolworths, and sometimes I would sit here and I would think, this woman's got so much potential, but I'm so nervous for her, and she's just always in the background there. And I know sometimes we had those discussions. So maybe what helped you overcome some of those hurdles?
To be honest with you, when I started out, it was huge for me. I don't come from corporate. That's the first thing. And I suddenly found myself in front of these corporate people and I was shaking in my boots. What helped me overcome, interestingly enough, once more, is people. So someone, I won't mention his name, but he walked up to me and he said, after I presented today, I don't want you to be nervous. I want you to believe in yourself. Please don't be anxious, just know that you've got this. And he will forever be one of the most influential people in my little space, because he told, and I'd met him once during your session, you know, and we met again when we had another leadership session, and he pulled me aside just to say that. And that made me feel like if he believes in me, then there must be something really going on for me that I'm not seeing. So I won't say it's totally done, it's work in progress. Yeah. But really it's been people that have said, well done, Carol, that was amazing. People that have allowed me to fail without judgment. People that have allowed me to say the wrong words and use the wrong phrases and come back to me and say, did you possibly think that this could work? And they didn't leave me feeling like I'm a bad person or I didn't think things through. And it's actually most of the people I facilitate that actually come back with that feedback. And that is what has kept me going in front of you guys for that long.
Sometimes with vulnerability, or there isn't a step-by-step coaching. You become more comfortable showing up yourself up because of the people that you are surrounded by, and actually reach out to you and say, you've got this. And also because of the relationships that you've made in the journey and created around asking, do you think this is going to work? Is it not going to work? Can it happen? I'll never forget the time I phoned you and I had to go and engage somebody. And I wanted to give this person feedback of what I really thought of who they were and what they were doing. And I phoned you, and afterwards I went and had this engagement. Afterwards I broke down after the engagement. But I think the fact that I had the ability to have a follow-up engagement and actually articulate to the individual, I think you are, and this is based on your behaviors. I put myself out there and I thought this could go very ugly because he might just escalate me, but he didn't. So it was also through you, me reaching out to you.
So there's something about leaning on each other. Let's have more women creating spaces where one can reach out. Let us cheerlead. We underestimate, I guess, from your story, the power of cheerleading. And as you're asking me these questions, I'm also realizing that it's because somebody kept encouraging me, somebody kept cheerleading, somebody kept giving me space to think through things. So whenever we meet the next woman, maybe that's the challenge, that's the call to action. Celebrate, elevate, and inspire.
It's such a, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking it's such a powerful topic, and I think the only reason as women we don't do it it's around the shame. We're scared, the fear of being labeled, the fear of people, shame and whatever, and we actually need to get out of that, honestly, because I'm thinking of a lot of the church groups that I belong to, and sometimes I look around the room. We all single parents, we've lost our parents, so we are the heads of the houses, and we're all going through stuff, but very little of us share what we're going through.
Thank you so
there
much,
is hope.
Miranda.